Well, I'm a 40-year-old man and I've been to Harry Potter World twice. So we'll start there.
Hey everyone, I am Scott and he is Tom, and today we're going to take a look at one of my favorite IPs. I have my poop mug ready, so sit with us and we're going to take a look at Hogwarts Legacy. So Tom, we've done primarily multiplayer games and MMOs since we started this. But today we're going to talk about a single player game because they're still important to me. I know you played a little bit of them growing up, but I still think there's a resurgence coming of single player games, and I've been excited about a lot of them that I've seen on the horizon. And there's also been a couple that were just more recently released. But okay, why are two older dads looking at Harry Potter now? What is your experience with it first?
Well, I'm a 40-year-old man and I've been to Harry Potter World twice. So we'll start there.
Yep.
And it wasn't with my kids. Actually, I was not a huge Harry Potter fan. I don't know if I was a little older when a lot of that hype started up, and so I just wasn't super into it. I got into it later because my wife, she is a huge reader, and so she's read all the Harry Potters, and she always would drag me to the movies. And so
Yeah.
I got into it. I watched one of the later movies, and there was a lot of plot holes. And I am a movie goer. Like, I love, like, before kids, me and my wife, we went to the movies every single weekend. So I love the movies. I love that experience of seeing it on the big screen. Yes, those days. And so the movie just had a lot of plot holes that it was really bugging me. So of course my wife had all the books. I just went home. I picked up the book that went with the movie. I read it and I was like, this book is incredible. The writing is on another level. Just all the obviously the books are always better. So all the storylines involved in the book was just really, grabbed my attention. And so I read that book to make sense of the movie. And then I read the last book just to keep it going. But then at that point, I hadn't read like the first 5 books. So I actually started over at book 1 and read all the way through. And I think I've read the whole series twice now. So yeah, I'm just a fan of the lore is so cool. The backstories, the whole world that has been created is really interesting.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my experience.
I mean, you came to Harry Potter later in life, and it just kind of it goes to show you that it can still connect to an older audience. For me, it's a lot more personal. It came out when I was the first book came out when I was 12. So I grew up reading them, super excited for the movies. So I was still very young when they came out. And I've just recently got to experience them again with my kids and see it through their eyes. So it already was important to me. I loved it. And now it's even more important because it's something I share with my kids. And it's been incredibly satisfying to go through the story again. And just seeing this game pumped me up big time. Haven't just recently watched all of them again. We talk about single player games now. I'm super into them. Always have been. That's what got me into gaming. I love the immersion of single player games, especially open world, highly story driven games. And for me, I still play them. I know you don't, but a little bit of history about your single player experience.
Just to kind of preface the whole thing with context, I'm just a huge PvPer. That's what I love in games. I love, Halo FPS games. We'll still play Warzone. And even in MMOs, that's mainly what I do. Guild Wars, Star Wars Old Republic. When I played WoW, it was all about arena and battlegrounds. And so I'm just not, like, story games don't grab me. I don't want to see other people's stories. That's another big issue with single player games for me, is a lot of times you're playing, as a character. And when I play games, I also like to create my own character and view it through that lens, as almost it's like me role playing, like in true RPG fashion, playing in a game. Depending on the game, a lot of single player games, you don't have that. That's kind of my take on it. I feel like if I want a good story, I'll like go watch a TV show or watch a movie. But when I play a game, I want it to be like an extension of me. That's why single player games don't really draw me in.
And I think I like that too. It brings you closer in the story if you can, but I also love being able to, just like you would in a movie, relate to the character and just almost go along on the journey with them. So that's kind of where I stand when it comes to that, is it's just either projecting myself or being along for the ride. and any type of immersion just makes it even better.
Yeah,
So
I know you love the stories and you've talked about that before, and I don't want to make it sound like I've
yeah,
never played single player games. Like, one of the very first games that I played was on Dreamcast. Shout out to anyone who had a Dreamcast. They were like way ahead of
wow,
its time. They're amazing. I remember I traded my when I was in college. I traded my Dreamcast for a couch. By the way, that's a tidbit for the BadCuzDad lore. You know, that maybe that'll live on. But I played Shenmue. Shenmue was like the very first kind of open world RPG game I kind of played, where you could just get a job and go to the docks and work. Like, it was, you go to the arcade and play these old Sega games like Harrier
yeah,
and stuff like that. And my mind was kind of blown, but I think that was kind of a stepping stone though to MMORPGs for me. I wanted like more of the RPG. And, you know, of course, who hasn't, well, I don't know if you have, but who hasn't played Skyrim? I was put hundreds of hours into Skyrim, of course, but you could make your own guy and make it your story. So I don't want to make it sound like I've never played. It's just at this point, when I get on for my 1 or 2 hours of gameplay that I actually have, I prefer like an MMO or a FPS kind of.
Yeah, and I think a big thing now too is that single player games are in fact making a resurgence. There's been good ones and there's a ton being planned, and I think they fell off for a while. MMOs were big for a long time, they still are, but they found that there was more money and games that continually, like live service games. So
that is a great point.
Yeah, there is a resurgence, and I think, you know, games like Red Dead have really set a new standard for what these games should be like. So let's go ahead and start talking about it now.
Okay.
The first thing that we ever saw was the environment and a little taste of what the story may be, what the setting may be. So let's talk about that first. My first impressions from what we know is you're a 5th-year student and you were at Hogwarts about 100 and some years before the events of Harry Potter. So it's in the 1800s. And what we see is Hogwarts looking like it did from the movies. Looks great seeing it, but it seems like a world that's familiar, but also completely new, because we have no idea what these characters are. We have no idea what the plot is going to be. They gave a little bit of hints in this video, but there's a lot we still don't know. So it's this strange excitement for me that there's a familiarity, but also this sense of wonder, because now we have the whole Harry Potter world to explore, and this is unlike anything we've had so far when it's come to that genre and that IP.
Yeah, the first thing, totally, when you showed me the trailer, you're like, you gotta check this out, and I was like, oh, a Harry Potter game? I don't know. And then just the graphics and environment, like, technology's come so far. Like, if there was an MMO with those types of graphics, I know Black Desert has some pretty good graphics, and some other MMOs are good, but the graphics in this game are incredible. And I think it was even showing gameplay on a PS5, so imagine on the PC. But not only that, is when I saw the character creator, I was like, okay, I can get behind this. You're not playing a static character. You're getting to imagine yourself as the character in the game. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And you mentioned about your kids earlier. I think something that when I saw the character creator, I was like, man, I could totally get into this with my kids if they want to play this, and kind of get them into the RPG world with like a really cool Harry Potter game. Like, well, that seems like the best way to do it. It blew me away pretty much from the get-go. The trailer was amazing.
Yeah, so kind of branching on then the RPG element, the creating element, and then this huge open world. This is obviously an RPG. The first vibe that I got, which is a great thing, was, okay, this is Red Dead Redemption in Harry Potter. Everything about it, when they were talking about exploration and things to find and story branches and the types of companions that you can get, I immediately thought, if this is anything like RDR2, it's going to be incredible. So it doesn't seem like this linear single player experience. It seems like a very large world with hopefully tons of branches to explore, and that organic feeling of that living world that Red Dead really brought to life and executed perfectly, in my opinion.
I don't know. My first thought, I don't know if this was a weird thought, was, man, I wish this was like a co-op game almost. Like, if you could jump in, it doesn't have to be an MMO, but, you know, just like, hey, you could jump in with 1 or 2, or like a small party, or at least have maybe some common areas where you could interact with other players.
Yeah.
Because when I saw it, I was like, I think the first question I asked you was like, oh, this is like a new co-op game or something. And you're like, no, it's single player. I was like, no. I got to read the FAQ. This is no way this is single player. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of a, like you're saying, a testament to single player games coming back, because this is like as well done of a single player as you can do. It looks like so in-depth and immersive.
Yeah, and it showed, I mean, the RPG elements are there. It showed us crafting, which looked like it was integrated with the classes, which was really cool. Like it showed the hand of somebody dropping something in the potion. And it showed places you can use the room of requirement to practice, and it looked like there was a ton of other things that you could interact with when it came to crafting or skill learning, or I'm sure there's some type of treasure system. It didn't show, but the type of this living world environment that they're boasting looks like it's going to deliver on that. All right, so let's talk combat. What are your first impressions looking at it? I have mine, but I'm curious to see yours right off the bat.
It looked complex, which I think is good, because I think in a single player game, if you can have complex combat, at least for me, it draws me in because it gives me something else I can focus on. They were using a lot of CC and a lot of managing, fighting multiple enemies. And so it just looked really intricate and engaging, I guess, instead of just mashing a button over and over. It looked like you could actually strategically go about some of the fights. And so that's what looked cool to me. I don't know. What about you?
It looks like real-time action combat. It looked incredibly smooth to me. I like that they've taken basically the exact formula of the films and just threw it into a game seamlessly. The only thing that stood out to me, which I thought might get annoying, is if they seriously say a spell every single time you do something.
Yeah.
That it's going to be constant over and over. So I hope they take some of the lore from the books where they can still actually cast it without saying something all the time.
Hopefully there's a way to turn some of that off or down or whatever you would assume. Yeah.
There's different difficulties they've stated. So that's cool. You can either play it as a story game or actually challenge yourself.
Yeah.
It looks smooth. It looks, actually, for a wizarding type game, it seems pretty brutal. Like it has some meat behind it. The combat looks good enough to definitely pull you into the story, because I think the story is the main element of what is going to make this game good. And I think we should talk about that now, because Harry Potter is good because of the story. We followed them as kids, and they were able to tell a story through the eyes of kids and have them evolve. And it was a very deep, emotional story about sacrifice and love. And I hope that this game can capture a lot of that. So the story seems like your student, who I said is a fifth year, he's playing this Harry Potter-esque type character. He's sought out by, it seems, a teacher or somebody higher up in the wizarding world to investigate this rumored goblin rebellion that's being led by this goblin that we see in the gameplay here. His name's Ranrock. So he's tasked to investigate that, and there's tie-ins to Dark Wizards. It seems like it sends your character on that kind of like Star Wars The Old Republic first had, even Red Dead had it, where it's like a good or bad path, the light side, dark side, whatever. It shows that you can actually become a dark wizard if you choose to. So it gives a lot of...
I didn't catch that. Is that an option?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
It said that. They showed your player using the killing curse. So it looks like there's going to be that emotional element in there that you can really put into your character, and hopefully it is just so organic happening through all the characters in the story.
And I like that because it seems like that would lend to replayability too, right? If you can play as a dark wizard versus regular or whatever, that's super cool.
Yeah, a lot of games do that right. Some of it is just like is so minimized by, okay, if you start killing civilians, you're going to go dark,
right? And
it's not compelling. It looks like in the story it's going to be compelling, that it will definitely be difficult for the player to decide, and that's always fun for me. I like those. I always go good, but it's still fun to see how they can play out, depending on how good the writing is and how good the acting is.
Right. But I think that would be interesting to be like going House Slytherin, but then being a good character, or vice versa, like being in a house that's like Hogwarts and playing a darker. That just seems like really cool notes they could hit that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe interesting dialogue that could go with that.
And the best decision I think they made on this was the timeline, because they're not really, pigeonholed to staying to the Harry Potter story.
Right.
What's great is that the exploration can bring a lot of that foreshadowing. Maybe there's elements of stuff that have, maybe relatives or pieces of the Deathly Hollows, like all these things that can be Easter eggs, callbacks, foreshadowing, and it'll allow us to get a new story without being so restricted, but still to have a lot of those things that bring the emotion back for us who are fans of it.
Yeah, I like that, like you said, that they put it in the past, almost like a prequel, kind of like Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's in the Star Wars universe, but it's so far in the past that you can make and craft your own stories to tell that don't conflict. Because you're right, if they would have put this game set after the movies, then it seems like you would have to follow a very rigid tone, especially since there's still movies coming out. And so it seems like the canvas is just wide, like blank. It's wide open for them to go and tell really cool stories.
It just looks good. I know we all say we need to be a little bit skeptical of these really AAA games that are hyped beyond belief. And it's hard not to. I mean, we're passionate about these things. We get excited about them. But I think I'm optimistically excited right now.
I have a big question. I know it's single player, but are they going to monetize and through microtransactions or any other? Have they mentioned any of that? Because that could throw a big wrench for me.
As of now, it's stated that there is no microtransactions or anything. It's going to be exactly the same as like Jedi Fallen Order was. You get the game, that's what it is.
To your point
but
earlier,
DLC is always on the table. We just don't know anything about it yet.
Yeah, but I think that's when single player games were great, right? When they just had DLC and not microtransactions. Because kind of you're saying, why is single player games even need to make a resurgence? I think microtransactions kind of killed single player games. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want to go into this game and have to buy every single robe with real life money to customize my character. I'd like to unlock it in the game or craft it kind of like you did with Skyrim or with other single player games, and not going and buy it. But like you said, if the story is good and they put out a DLC, like I think I would be more than willing to drop more money for a continuation of the story. Or I think that model works now for single player games if they want to do the DLC route.
Yeah, DLCs are great, and that should, in my opinion, be the only thing for single player games. Monetization just weakens the product, in my opinion. And just like I feel about MMOs, and I asked in that Guild Wars video, what's the carrot on the stick? Well, for me, the carrot on the stick is anything that is worth achieving in the game. And if it's a great story that I want to finish, if it's a great world I want to explore, then that's my carrot on the stick. If I want to earn like a super cool robe or a super cool wand or anything like that, I want to earn it in the game and play it the way it was meant. So it seems like games are starting to slide back to that, where it was about personal achievement and immersion. And I'm getting the sense from that game and a lot of other single player games we should cover at some point going forward. I'm optimistic. The game to me looks very promising. I'm going to get it, even if the reviews aren't that great at first, just because it looks like the developers put a lot of work into it. And I appreciate that and want to show my support for that and also enjoy the world they've created.
Is there a release date yet?
They said late this year, holiday this year. So November, December.
Yep.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully it's all on track.
With all that being said, though, you can't deny the game looks incredible at this point. And if they deliver, it seems it's pretty big in scope. If they can deliver on a lot of these things, I mean, I think it's going to be a hit. All right, that's going to wrap up the video, guys. Hit subscribe and hit the bell notification to get more content from us. We appreciate you joining us. We've been BadCuzDad, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Tom, you go ahead and do the outro.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the video. Thanks for joining us. Hit the subscribe button if you liked the content. Hit the bell notification to be... Wow, that was terrible.